What if the most advanced defense grid on the planet was brought to its knees by a weapon that technically shouldn't exist? 30 minutes of total silence, 0 shots fired, and a dictator in handcuffs. The president calls it the Discombobulator, but the physics tell a darker story, one that leads straight back to the stars.
Yeah, I met this Russian scientist who had worked on their version of Star Wars. He lived in one of these secret cities. He'd never spoken to any journalist, let alone a Western journalist. And he started telling us about the work that they were doing. He showed me this tabletop model of a laser weapon that he called the weapon of the aliens.
The thing that intrigues me, Megan, is it possible that those weapons are derived from the technologies that we're talking about here today, retrieved non-human technology?
We have weapons that nobody knows about. And I say it's probably good not to talk about them, but we have some amazing weapons.
Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of The Briefing. Thank you to all the new subscribers out there. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing. Around here, we pull at all the hidden threads, testimony, history, and evidence most people never even hear about. Also, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps out the videos. And I spent some time on this and connecting some dots, and the parallels I found are too striking to ignore. There's a pattern emerging here, one that suggests a deeper integration between recovered alien tech and our own military hardware. In this episode, I'm going into the weeds to show you exactly where the seams are. On January 3rd, 2026, the skyline of Caracas was rocked by an explosion. We saw the missile plumes, we saw the S-300 batteries turned into red-hot scrap metal by American tomahawks. But the mystery isn't what destroyed them, it's how we were allowed to get that close in the first place. Since that night, the halls of Washington have been buzzing with a single word: the Discombobulator. It's the name President Trump gave to the secret weapon that made it all possible, a device he claims gives us an expertise that is unmatched by human history. But while the official line talks about American innovation, the rumor mill in the intelligence community is whispering something much more provocative. They're saying this isn't just a new gadget from a DARPA lab. They're saying we finally stopped hiding the wreckage and started using it. In this episode, we're going down the rabbit hole to look at the terrifying possibility that our newest arsenal isn't actually ours. So are we looking at the next generation of human warfare, or the first public deployment of technology recovered from the stars? So do stick around, and let's get into it. It began with Trump's comment regarding weapons no one knows about, and I believe with questionable origin. The common thread in these systems seems to be use of acoustics and frequencies. We're beginning to realize that frequency is more than sound or light. It's the foundational code of reality. Quantum physics shows us that the universe isn't made of solid objects, but of resonant vibrations we're just now learning to decode. From the 111 hertz ego-silencing tones of ancient megaliths to the neural striking pulse of modern secret weapons, we are discovering that waves are the master keys to human consciousness. We've mastered the radio, but we are only just scratching the surface of a master frequency that an advanced lost civilization may have used to bridge the gap between mind and matter. Interestingly, when you compare the high strangeness of abduction tech with the testimony of military whistleblowers, the parallels to actual US patents are undeniable. A perfect example of this crossover, and the case that first caught my attention, is the Valensole incident of 1965. One of the most famous cases of a frequency paralysis effect occurred in France.
There is an egg-shaped object, just like the one at Trinity, just like the one in Socorro. It's the size of a mid-sized truck. There are two creatures in front of it, human looking, 2 eyes, breathing air. They look at him, sort of amused, and one of them has something on his belt. He takes out, pointed at him, and that's when he's paralyzed.
Farmer Maurice Massé encountered a small craft in his field. As he approached, one of the occupants pointed a small pencil-like device at him. Massé was instantly paralyzed. He remained conscious and can see, but he was physically locked in place for nearly 20 to 30 minutes. He described a slow thawing process where he eventually regained sensation in his extremities before he could fully walk again. This suggests that discombobulator is based on a neurological locking frequency that overrides the motor cortex without causing permanent muscle damage. Now, if you want to know how the US disabled the Russian S-400s in Caracas so easily, look at the Maelstrom incident. Now, this is a common theme. Also, we are constantly hearing about how these things actively jam radar and avoid detection. Former Air Force Captain Robert Salas testified that while a glowing red orb hovered over the gate of a nuclear missile silo, all 10 Minutemen missiles went no-go, disabled, simultaneously. The missiles weren't broken, they were suppressed. Technicians couldn't find a physical fault. This is the exact electronical interference capability the US military has sought to replicate. In 2025, a declassified report hinted that the US finally figured out how to broadcast the same field used at Maelstrom to shut down enemy grids. According to reports by the Wall Street Journal, a subsequent military documentation in 2025, the Pentagon officially assessed that the 1967 incident where 10 nuclear missiles went offline was actually caused by a classified test of an electromagnetic pulse (EMP) device rather than a UFO. If the 1967 shutdown was caused by a man-made EMP test, it confirms that the US has possessed the capability to broadcast a localized field to disable hardened electronics since at least the 1960s. The Maelstrom field as a modern weapon, broadcasting the same field to shut down enemy grids, matches recent discussions around high-power microwave (HPM) weapons. In late 2024 and through 2025, the US military has been fielding systems like the 𝐼PRUS Leonidas, an HPM weapon designed to fry drone swarms and electronics. Theorists argue that if the Maelstrom incident was the first test of this frequency-based tech, then the modern discombobulator or HPM systems are the evolved, broadcastable versions of that same 1967 technology. Then we have the Havana Link Cash-Landrum incident from 1980. The physical injuries seen in the Caracas guards, nosebleeds, internal heating, were first documented in this high-profile Texas case.
My eyes were burned so till they swelled till I couldn't hardly see. I couldn't see how to read or watch TV or do nothing. And every time I'd get out in the sun, it'd be big blisters, and I had sores all over my arms. After this happened to me, well, I couldn't work. I didn't have no friends to talk to.
Betty Cash and Vicki Landrum encountered a massive diamond-shaped craft emitting intense heat and light. Within hours, they suffered from what doctors called radiation-like sickness, nausea, hair loss, and vibrating pain in their internal organs. This case involved a craft being escorted by 23 military helicopters. This is the strongest rabbit hole evidence that the US government was testing this energy propulsion as far back as the 1980s, leading directly to the refined soft kill tech used just recently.
Secretary, can I ask you a question about some of the technology that you're developing to fight the war on terror, specifically directed energy and high-powered microwave technology? When do you envision that you can weaponize that type of technology?
Goodness. It is in, for the most part, the kinds of things you're talking about are in varying early stages. Do you have anything you'd add?
I don't think I would add much. I think they are in early stages and probably not ready for employment.
Then there's the microwave auditory effect. Project Blue Book file number 146, many Caracas witnesses complained of a screeching inside their head that no one else could hear. This is known as the Frey effect. It was first studied in the 1960s after UFO witnesses reported hearing buzzing or clicking from silent objects. The discombobulator appears to be a weaponized version of this. By pulsing microwaves at specific frequencies, you can make an enemy think their head is exploding, causing the vomit and bleed syndrome without ever firing a bullet. Another interesting thing about sound and vibration, very familiar to the stuff I just talked about, is this.
that after freeing themselves from the debris, the aliens came close together and then merged into a single object that acquired a spherical shape. That object began to buzz and hiss sharply and then became brilliant white. In a few seconds, the spheres grew much bigger and exploded by flaring up with an extremely bright light. At that very instant, 23 soldiers who had watched the phenomenon turned into stone poles.
Poles.
Yeah, only 2 soldiers who stood in the shade and were less exposed to the luminous explosion survived.
The parallels here are striking. The combination of sound and light effectively turned them to stone. It raises a chilling question. Is it possible for a specific energy frequency to induce state of molecular or neurological stasis that mimics petrification in humans? This was shared by Red Panda Koala on X and got me interested immediately. This Fox News report describes the sound as wiring, oscillating, and siren-like, causing sleeplessness and psychological stress.
Some like Kimberly Nunes, who lives in the neighborhood affected by the noise shown on this presentation by the Commissioner of Human Services, John Carano, said it's affecting everyone in her home.
It's affecting my mental health, my sleep, my well-being, as well as my children's. I've noticed that my pets tend to pace, stare. My cat seems to be scream for no reason.
Many others at Monday night's meeting agreed.
The animals do react differently, and they can hear things we can't hear. And so now that I became aware of it, the noise, now if she gets me up, now I'm up for the rest of the night, because now you can't go back to sleep because of that humming.
This matches the hum witnesses reported during the Caracas raid and the Frey effect, microwave auditory effect. So the question is the government testing a domestic version of the Discombobulator on American soil to see how large populations react to low-frequency suppression? So looking towards some historical abduction cases that involve beeping and hums, the most famous abduction cases in history don't start with a flash of light. They start with the hum. There is the Barney and Betty Hill case in 1961. Before they lost consciousness, the Hills reported a series of beeping and buzzing sounds that caused their car to vibrate physically. They described it as a rhythmic drone that seemed to induce a daze. Then there's the Travis Walton case in 1975. Walton reported a high-pitched vibrating hum emanating from the craft before he was struck by a beam of energy. Theorists argue that these hums are the byproduct of gravity well propulsion or neural interface tech. If thousands of people are hearing it now, is it because a cloak or a field is being maintained over the city? Whistleblowers like David Grush have hinted that some exotic craft don't have controls. They are operated by the pilot's consciousness via frequency. The theory is the hum is the frequency of the craft's engine interacting with the human nervous system. In cases of missing time or abduction, victims often report a vibration in the teeth or pressure in the skull, the exact symptoms these residents are currently reporting to local news. The Caracas connection here is if the Discombobulator uses these same frequencies to disable the guards, then the city hum might be the exhaust of the same technology being moved or tested in secret. And there's something I wanted to get into that I thought was really interesting. The conscious interface. While Grush hinted at the exotic nature of these craft, other prominent figures in the same circle have been more explicit about the lack of physical controls. In his book Imminent and various interviews, Elizondo has discussed the concept of thought-driven technology. He describes the craft as having no visible flight surface, wings, no engines, and no traditional cockpit with sticks or throttles. Dr. Gary Nolan, who has worked with the government to analyze UAP material and the brains of pilots who encountered them, has suggested that the craft might interface directly with the pilot's neurological system via specific frequencies. The prevailing theory among these whistleblowers is that the craft and the pilot are entangled. The craft doesn't just react to a pilot's thoughts, it behaves like an extension of the pilot's own body. So why frequency? The mention of frequency relates to the physical mechanism of these interfaces. Whistleblowers have suggested the craft utilizes electromagnetic or gravitational frequencies that the pilot tunes into, and this would explain the humming or vibrating reported in the Hill and Walton case. It's not an engine sound, but the sound of the craft's propulsion consciousness interface idling. And then we have my favorite. There is the observation of these entities floating or gliding rather than walking is one of the most consistent details in high strangeness reports. When you link this to the idea of frequency, we are touching on a theory currently being discussed by both whistleblowers and fringe scientists. Whistleblowers like Lou Elizondo have suggested that the propulsion of the craft, which often hums or vibrates, creates a localized bubble or Alcubierre-style warp field. If the craft operates by manipulating gravity or space-time via frequency, it is theorized that the entities themselves may have personal scale versions of this technology. They wouldn't be flying in the way a bird does, they would be nullifying their own mass. To an observer, this looks like effortless gliding or floating because they aren't pushing against the floor. They are essentially uncoupled from the Earth's gravity. Some researchers, including those appearing in a recent peer-reviewed journal like the Journal of Scientific Exploration, hypothesize that these beings utilize high-voltage electrostatic charges or rotating magnetic fields. If a being's biology is tuned to the same frequency as the craft, they may simply move along the craft's internal energy lattice. This would explain why they often seem to drift through walls or closed doors. If they can use frequency to slightly shift their phase or manipulate the space around them, solid matter ceases to be an obstacle. There's a darker, more utilitarian theory mentioned by some insiders. The theory is the beings, specifically the Greys, are not biological people in the way we are, but rather bioengineered drones or avatars. If they are essentially biological robots operated by a pilot back on a ship or in another dimension, they might be moved via acoustic or electromagnetic levitation controlled by the ship itself. They float because they are being moved like pieces on a board by the frequency of the craft. So here's why the frequency matters. In the Hill and Walton case I mentioned, the hum and the vibration were the primary physical sensations. Barney Hill felt the daze, a neurological shift. Travis Walton felt the vibration, a physical energy transfer. If consciousness is essentially a series of electrical frequencies in the brain, and the craft and entities operate on those same frequencies, the floating might be the side effect of them being frequency locked to their environment. They don't walk because walking is a primitive way to move when you can simply resonate to a different location. So is the Discombobulator an HPM weapon based on some exotic technology discovered in a reverse engineering program? The evidence from the 30-minute paralysis of Maurice Massé to the disabled electronic grid at Maelstrom suggests a decades-long mastery of energy and vibration. As Trump's cryptic comment about weapons no one knows about continues to echo, we have to wonder, have we finally perfected the weapons of the aliens, or have they been letting us borrow them all along? And what do you think about all of this? Let me know in the comments below. And that's all I've got for you today, guys. Keep asking questions, stay curious, and keep the conversation alive. I'll see you on the next briefing.